series. This is our fourth webinar in the STEM webinar series for the New York Network for Youth Success. We'll be recording the webinar today, and NYS will share the recording on their YouTube channel. So once again, my name is Melissa Fenton, and I am the project manager and extension educator for Click to Science at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. On with me from Click to Science is Carrie Wingert. She is going to be helping out with the chat and pulling up any polls. So if you're having any technical difficulties, Carrie will help you troubleshoot those in the chat pod. Once again, if you've been following the series, we previously facilitated webinars focused on informal STEM methods, developing a STEM identity in the youth you work with, connecting with community partners, and navigating STEM activities and curricula that are available to you. This final webinar in the series will really focus on using Click to Science to provide STEM professional development to your staff. So today we are going to describe the Click to Science model of ongoing professional development, describe best practices in planning professional development, practice selecting skills and resources to fit your program structure, and identify ways to evaluate the professional development you provide. So for those of you who might be new to Click to Science and what we are and what we do, I thought I should provide a little bit of history about our website. Click to Science was developed by Nebraska Extension with funding from the Noyce Foundation, which is now STEM Next at the University of San Diego. The goal of our organization is to provide the quality STEM learning experiences for youth through staff and volunteer development. We know staff and volunteers may not feel comfortable and confident facilitating STEM activities, so we developed free and easy-to-use professional development guides and videos for the field of out-of-school time. We launched in January of 2015, and since that time we've continued to build out our resources and our website, including new learning modules and videos, new professional development resources, crosswalks with next generation science standards, Common Core standards, and dimensions of success, and on-demand webinars. We are currently working on improving the user experience on our website. We hope to have our new website launched around the end of July. And we've also been reviewing and updating our professional development guides with a new look and updating our video-based learning module offerings. So there's a lot of changes going on at Click to Science. I am going to go live to the website for you to help me plan some professional development and just give you a taste of how to navigate it as is. But once the updated website rolls out, those things will be changing. And we hope that you'll find that the resources and materials that you need are even easier to find than they are already now. If you are not registered for Click to Science, please do so. It is free, but you must be registered to download any of the activities or the professional development resources. Please encourage staff that you train or coach to register as well. They receive access to our activities, newsletter, free webinars, and blogs. All of our resources support the Click to Science model of professional development, blending video-based learning modules with face-to-face and virtual professional development guides. The guides are designed to take minimal prep work for those facilitating the professional development. Essentially, you can read through the guide, make notes to make it your own, gather supplies, and deliver the content for a meaningful professional development experience for your staff. Video-based learning modules feature real after-school staff in real after-school programs. They are not examples of perfect practice and are meant to be conversation starters and to build a culture of reflection in out-of-school time. Our resources focus on the soft skills staff need to facilitate quality STEM activities in out-of-school time. We do not focus on STEM content. The out-of-school time workforce tends to be skilled in positive youth development, but needs this additional support feeling comfortable and confident facilitating STEM. And the Click to Science skills are designed to do just that and are developed through the use of our face-to-face and online lessons provided by Penn State Extension's Better Kid Care. So now that you know a little bit about Click to Science, I'm just going to talk about our blended learning model and our professional development model so that you understand what our resources are going to focus on and how you can implement them for high-quality STEM professional development for your staff. Research indicates that professional development is most successful when it is ongoing and blends different learning styles and modalities. We define blended learning as blending visual and experiential, in-person and online, and self-directed and social learning. This approach to professional development helps meet the needs of all learners, and our blended learning model integrates in-person professional development guides, videos of frontline staff leading STEM learning experiences, and those self-directed web lessons that are available through Penn State Extension's Better Kid Care. So what would this look like in practice? The blended learning model is nested within the professional development cycle we recommend using to improve the STEM facilitation skills of staff. So you'll see that blended learning model reflected in the staff development guides that you would use in each of these. And it looks like we had a slide malfunction, so I'll just go back to that slide. In each of these points in the cycle. So I'm going to describe each of these points, and then if we have questions as I'm going through, please type those into the chat box. So the web lesson is what we recommend staff beginning with, and this is the self-directed online lesson that's available through Penn State Extension's Better Kid Care. They have their own learning management system. Staff can create an account, log in, and complete a 2-hour self-directed professional development experience that uses videos and some chat boxes to kind of have a beginning course in using that Click to Science skill in practice. In the next section of the webinar, we'll talk about how to determine what skill you want to work on for your staff. But for example, if you've identified that you want your staff to really focus on encouraging collaborative STEM work, so that's something that you're working on in your program and you really want to see the youth working better together during STEM, you could select that skill as a focus point to help your staff improve their ability to facilitate those collaborative experiences. And then you would encourage staff to complete the Better Kid Care lesson that's titled Click to Science, It Takes Two, Encouraging Collaborative STEM Work. Just some things to know about the on-demand web lesson. They cost $5 to complete. Staff pay the $5 at the end of the lesson, or they can use a code if you've arranged to prepay for a certain amount of lessons with Penn State Extension's Better Kid Care. And they take that before the assessment. Lessons can only be accessed through Penn State Extension's learning management system, so staff do have to set up an account. We do have a tutorial available on our site to show you how to access the Click to Science series of web lessons very easily. And staff do receive PD clock hours for completing that web lesson. So the next bubble in the cycle is training, and staff build upon the knowledge that they developed in their self-directed learning experience through a hands-on in-person training. Staff reflect upon the essence of the skill, what it looks like in practice, and how to use it during a STEM experience. The trainings are 60 to 90 minutes, include using the skill as part of a hands-on experience, and feature discussions around the video-based learning modules. These trainings are designed to be led with a group of staff and/or volunteers to encourage social learning and rich discussion. Then following the training, staff and volunteers are encouraged to practice using the skill while they lead STEM learning experiences with youth. Then you would follow up that practice time and that first professional development experience that we call a training with what we call a meeting. And this is a shorter piece of professional development that encourages staff and volunteers to dig deeper into using the skill and discuss strategies as a group. These 15 to 30-minute professional development experiences are hands-on or discussion-based and feature the video-based learning modules to encourage reflection on practice to determine what works and what does not work when using this skill during STEM activities. Meeting resources can be used in an in-person staff meeting or a virtual meeting, and these experiences meet the needs of social, experiential, and visual learners. Then we encourage staff to continue to practice using that skill with youth, so that they can reflect upon their practice to prepare for an in-person or virtual coaching session. The trainer coach supports staff and volunteers developing additional strategies for using the skill and setting improvement goals during this coaching session. And this is 15 or 30 minutes using the video-based learning modules or video staff and volunteers have recorded of themselves to reflect on practice and a variety of different strategies just to provide an additional personalized professional development experience for the staff. And staff and volunteers are encouraged to continue to practice as they continue to develop the skill or begin the cycle with a new Click to Science skill. So I've talked a lot about skills, I've talked a lot about resources. This just gives you an idea of how ongoing professional development can be grouped together in different types of experiences to improve those soft skills that staff use when they teach STEM activities. So we're really focusing on the pedagogy, not on the content when we're working through this. And we are going to move on to discussing how we select skills and understanding a little bit more about what staff would be focusing on during this professional development experience. So knowing that research on promising programs has demonstrated that participating in a high-quality after-school program has a significant impact on youth leads to the question, how do you measure quality? We know that programs use a variety of tools to measure quality. Some programs develop their own tools, some use resources from their state network or funder, and some use national tools such as Dimensions of Success or YPQA. But many programs have no way of assessing their program quality. So I want you to share in the chat box how you identify areas for improvement in your programs. So either what tools you use or different strategies that you use to determine what you're going to focus on to help improve your program quality. And the tools that programs are using to evaluate their program quality. And that's very typical of the field. Either places do create their own assessments, or if you have a funder who's funding a specific initiative, they require you to use certain evaluation tools at times so that they can look at that data as a whole. So it's not uncommon that we have a few people on the webinar and everybody lists some different things that they use. But at least we all are measuring our program quality, which is a positive thing. So our recommendation for best practice in using Click2Science resources is to use your program improvement goals to guide the development of a staff development plan. We have tools on our site to help you align your program improvement goals with Click2Science skills for your staff. So when you know what you're trying to accomplish, it is much easier to select appropriate PD resources that are a good fit for your program and your goals, and to evaluate the impact of your efforts. Our goal is to help you use these resources to create a culture of improving program quality by providing professional development experiences that engage staff and help them develop their skills. So let's talk a little bit about planning professional development for programs. So in the files to download pod, there is a planning PD handout. It's the second document down, and that we've shared with some people who found it very helpful in specifically using Click2Science to improve STEM program quality and the skills of their staff. So if you're interested in that, you can download that and use that to help you plan professional development using Click2Science resources. So our steps for planning PD for programs is to begin by analyzing the program quality assessments, program goals, or youth outcomes that programs want to improve. We've reviewed some different quality assessment tools, and we'll walk through an example of selecting skills and resources based on program quality data. We also recommend that you identify the skills staff need to develop to improve these outcomes. So our new, we have a new skills framework that will help in matching program goals and youth outcomes to specific skills. However, if you get stuck, you can look at the purpose and objectives of the skills, which will be accessible on each page to see if they support the program goals or quality data you've reviewed. And then you want to identify the PD strategies that are going to work the best for your program. How much time do you have? What resources do you have? Face-to-face trainings are great, especially when staff have opportunity to practice the skill, but they do take time. Shorter PD experiences built into staff meetings can help develop skills, but they need to be done frequently to make an impact. Coaching staff individually is an effective strategy, but it takes time and can be expensive. Self-directed learning from Click2Science can help staff develop their skills. These lessons do have a minimal cost, but staff are required to do them on their own time. And you may decide to combine several resources into a half-day workshop, or combine a meeting and a training resource for a 2-hour workshop. But you'll want to select whatever resources fit into your professional development structure. And then you want to prepare the logistics and create the plan. How will you get staff to participate in the professional development? When will it be? What logistics do you need to plan for? What follow-up will there be? What are the next steps in the larger PD plan for your organization or program? That PD planning for PD worksheet is really helpful in helping you think through and select the specific resources you or the person responsible for providing professional development can deliver to your staff. So I just want to plug that one more time for using that. So we're going to walk through an example of using program quality data to inform your decisions about staff development. So this slide shows national data on program quality from Dimensions of Success. We can see that there are some areas where there are a lot of strong programs across the country. Those are the pink areas on the right side of the table. So on the right side you'll see pink, on the left side you'll see red. We're going to focus on the pink and the red sides and not talk about the blue or the green for our purposes today. So it looks like more than 60% of the programs evaluated were effective in organizing their space for STEM learning. And that's represented by the features of the learning environment. So those first three rows are the dimensions that focus on the features of the learning environment. So overall, our after-school programs are pretty effective in creating appropriate STEM learning environments. Very few of the programs needed improvement in this area, which is that red side that's on the left of the table. So the pink means it's pretty strong. The red means that area needs work on it. So nationally, we're also pretty good at engaging youth in purposeful activities. That's the next 3 rows. However, we struggle some with STEM knowledge and practices. Rows 7, 8, and 9. These areas are not as strong. But I think you would probably agree that the last 3 rows seem to be areas of greatest need. We have fewer programs that are effective in these areas, pink, and more that need improvement, red. These last 3 rows are related to youth development in STEM, building relationships, creating relevance, and giving youth voice. And these are those last 3 rows on your screen. So now I would like to hear from you. What areas do your staff need professional development in? So please take a little time to respond to the poll that's just popped up and is covering the chart on your screen. If you could select one of these areas that you think your staff need professional development in, please select one of those options, and that can help us guide our conversation going forward. Excellent. So I hope you can see those results. If you cannot, please let me know. But it looks like the 2 areas are engagement during STEM activities and then teaching youth STEM knowledge and practices. No one suggested supporting youth development through STEM, which is one of the areas that the DOS tool has identified as being an area that staff need more professional development in or programs need to work on. And then nobody said preparing STEM learning experiences. So that's very consistent with the national data. So I think I'm going to use your ideas for engagement during STEM activities or teaching youth STEM knowledge and practices. And when we go live to the website, I will help structure our walkthrough so that you can see how you would easily find resources and skills that relate to these 2 areas. And I'm actually just So we wanted to focus on engagement during STEM activities or teaching youth STEM knowledge and practices. So there are a couple different ways that you could go about selecting skills that are focused on this area. You could select the 20 skills that make STEM click and then read through the purpose and objectives to make a selection there. So for example, if you're going to talk about engagement during STEM activities, embracing active STEM learning is a good skill. Asking purposeful questions is another good skill. And so if you read through the purpose and objectives, you'll know, okay, these are the skills I really wanted to focus on. You know, making authentic assessments and reflecting and processing. If you're focusing on teaching you STEM knowledge and practices, modeling science and engineering processes, supporting documentation of STEM learning, are a couple of good skills that you would want to focus on there. And once again, our skill framework is changing a little bit. We're going down from 20 skills to 16 skills and separating a few out. We've combined a few. We've added a new one. We've gotten rid of some skills. So that will be changing. But for now, they're still going to be very similar to what this is. There's just been some duplication removed and some things tightened up as far as the purpose and outcomes. So you can look through the skills that way. You can also come to this crosswalk, and even if you don't use DOS, if you're looking at activity engagement, so we wanted to talk about engagement during STEM activities, you could look here and see, okay, these are the skills that they recommend for just this entire area. Now, if I was using DOS as an STEM program quality evaluation tool, and we were really low on engagement, you know, I'd want to focus on these skills. If we were, you know, focusing on purposeful activities, I'd focus on this skill, and participation, that skill. And this will be changing as well when we finish, realigning our new skills. So I apologize that I'm having to show you kind of old stuff, but at least you will have an idea of how to do it. And then if we're going to focus on STEM knowledge and practices, these are the skills that are really going to help you get there. So there's just a couple ways to find the skills that may support the areas that you're wanting to improve. So it looks like reflecting and processing STEM experiences was found in a lot of these areas. So maybe let's look at that as a skill that we want to improve. So this skill is really all about making sure that youth have time to think and that they deepen the learning that is happening in STEM. And we all know the after-school world is kind of chaotic and can be hectic, and you don't always have enough time. So I think time to reflect and think about what's going on within the learning may not happen as often as it should because of the time constraints that we had. So this skill is really going to help staff build in that time, use good strategies that are going to help you, make a lot of meaning during that STEM learning experience. So, if I were going to provide some professional development to my staff, I need some guidance from our audience on what the professional development structure looks like. So, do you have one training a month for staff? Do you have one training every 6 months for staff? Do you have a monthly staff meeting that you try to do professional development in? Do you have the opportunity to do webinars? Any kind of ideas that you have about your professional development structure, or what are the opportunities that you have to provide professional development to staff? Just type those into the chat pod, and then that'll help me pick out some of the resources that may be applicable to you. Excellent. So Anne-Marie shared that there's 2 all-staff trainings each year, one in August, one in January, and then there's bi-weekly staff meetings with site managers. So that would be a great group to do some professional development with. You can also integrate some of the resources into those all-staff trainings. So I'll talk about some different options there. And then Timothy shared quarterly trainings with multiple sites present. Excellent. So if we're looking at engaging, decently large groups together for longer periods of time, the training resources are a good way to go. They're hands-on, they're engaging, they involve some kind of an activity that staff can take back and use with youth. So I would recommend starting there for some of those longer trainings, and then you can stack things together. So you may need to focus on a lot of different things at those all-staff trainings. I don't know if they're just a specific STEM focus, but if you were needing to go over safety procedures or first aid or get people CPR certified, or the many things that after-school programs and out-of-school time programs need to do, you could fit one of these hour and 30-minute sessions into that day to provide some STEM professional development. So what I did is I scrolled through these professional development resources and looked for the one that had an hour and 30 minutes. And so what I would do is I download that resource, and these will be looking a little different, and the structure will be a little different, mind you, but I would download this resource, and then I could look through it and say, you know what, they're going to build paper tables. That's pretty easy as far as supplies go. Takes an hour and a half. We've got some good handouts. We've got step-by-step instructions. Watch a video, reading through it briefly. I'm going to go ahead and print this out and see if it's something that I can integrate into that large training or the quarterly training where I have quite a few staff coming to it. So that's just one way that you could integrate one of these longer resources. So we also, saw some bi-weekly staff meetings with site managers, and in those you could look at the meeting resources. So we've got this resource that has the staff, and this might be really great for the site managers, complete a table that talks about, and I think I have to download it here. So see, there's a few things that are a little cumbersome about the site now that we are improving. But you can have site managers fill out his program considerations worksheet to really identify What are they doing well with regards to reflecting and processing? What are some barriers? And then what are some solutions and strategies they could implement in those programs to make sure that youth have an opportunity to reflect alone, with other youth, with the adults, just to build some good strategies and opportunities into the program. And so as you can see, the PD is really step-by-step. It has, print off these resources, say this, do this, show this video, gives you step-by-step instructions. So it doesn't take a lot of time on your end to print it out and implement it. You just have to read through it, take some notes and make it your own, and then you can deliver it to the staff. There are other ways to get to these resources. So I'd like to show you searching by the professional development opportunity you want to provide. So we've had a couple people mention all staff, quarterly trainings with multiple sites, so decent amounts of people. Let's say that you guys were wanting to focus on teaching youth STEM knowledge and practices. So we are going to look at modeling, science, and engineering processes. And you want to focus on inquiry. So there we can find the inquiry training that's going to give staff and experience to learn how to facilitate inquiry-based experiences. Now, it's just an introductory training. This isn't the workshop of inquiry that would be really, really successful, but it's an hour and a half snippet of professional development that at least gives staff an idea of what this could look like. And say you were planning for those bi-weekly meetings, you could come to the meeting resources and you want to focus on group management during STEM because you've been having issues with management. You could find this really quick 15-minute meeting guide that includes some great strategies here for structuring group gatherings and behavior. May not always be applicable to STEM, but that's just an idea that you could implement into that biweekly staff meeting to say, here, take this back and share this with your staff. Pick out a strategy you're going to implement. Let's watch this video and do the professional development together. Now, coaching, I didn't touch on that because I didn't see that come through with your professional development structure, but you could always use coaching peer-to-peer. The coaching resources are great if you have a staff member who really needs some work in an area and you want to do it in a really positive way, not in a way that makes them feel like they're being reprimanded. So we talked about, I think, encouraging collaborative STEM work was a skill that was referenced when we were looking at the skills that support engagement during STEM activities. So you could come to one of these coaching resources, download it, read through it, and decide, yeah, I think this is great. I'm going to have my staff use this for peer coaching, and then we're going to report back on how it went. Or, I have a staff member that it's not very good at facilitating teamwork activities, so we're going to do this coaching session to really help them get better at that. So just wanted to show you the different ways to get access to those. And you heard me talk about video-based learning modules. So I'm going to go to the asking purposeful questions skill. So I'm highlighting a lot of different skills here just so you can see the many offerings that we have. And within the professional development resources, it will have a link to the online learning module that we want you to watch as part of that professional development experience. Now, you can switch these out if you want to, but the really important thing to remember about these learning modules is that they are to be used within a professional development context. So we've had in the past people say that they came to the website and they watched the videos, and that's great. That's totally fine to be able to see this. But the real learning takes place when you have a discussion as a group about what you see in the videos, both what's good and what the staff member could improve on. So it helps us build a culture of reflection in our own programs when we can talk not meanly, but constructive, critically about our practices and think about, after you do an activity, what went well, what didn't go well, and what are you going to do differently next time? So we've tried to build those prompts in and reflection questions in that you can talk with the group about. Those are outlined in the professional development, and then they're also on the website. And you can also access the professional development that's related to that specific learning module here. And then staff, if they are interested in practicing using the skill with the activity that's featured in the video, they can download the activity here. So that's a really basic walkthrough of our website. I am going to point out just a few more things that you may want to use with your staff or direct staff too. We do monthly free webinars and we record them. And so all of our on-demand webinars are available here. That can be something that you could watch with staff, pause it, talk about what we're talking about, talk about the content, or ask staff to watch it and then you meet up together and talk about it, or staff can watch it on their own. But just want to point out that those are there. And then we have our upcoming webinars that you can register for as well. And we also have a blog. Carrie is our resident blogger extraordinaire, and she's bringing in some great strategies and great perspectives into the blog and sharing that with our audience. So definitely check that out as a place to get some information from. So with each of the skills, we have a link to get to the Penn State Extension Better Kid Care site to then log in and complete those lessons. And so once you get to the landing page, then you can log into their learning management system, and it's pulling up a little bit slow, but you can get in there and create an account and then start taking those on-demand web lessons. So you would just sign in. And you can look for the series here by clicking on the Lesson Series or Courses tab, and then you can find all of the Click to Science lessons that are available through Penn State Extension's Better Kid Care. And there's one for each of the 20 skills. When we go down to 16 skills, they will still all be available, so there are plenty to take. Okay, so I don't see anything popping through in the chat pod, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and get back to our slides. Okay, so what if it looks like everybody's gathering some evaluation data, but some programs don't have evaluation data. So perhaps you've observed that STEM activities are not organized and that they just started doing, and your program just started doing STEM activities. So where could you start? There isn't an easy crosswalk that just says, these are my observations, what skills should I look at? I showed you how to look through the purpose and objectives to determine that, as well as use some existing crosswalks with other tools that could be helpful. But if you're thinking, my staff, we just started working on STEM, they don't even really know where to start, you could focus on preparing for success in STEM, which is currently preparing yourself to facilitate STEM, and any of the skills that are under the tab Planning STEM Learning Experiences on the website. We do have one of our training resources in the Files to Download pod as an example, Preparing to Say It's STEM, and that's a good one to start with if your staff are brand new to STEM. So feel free to download that and either share that with other people or use it in your program. Okay, so research supports that an effective professional development plan incorporates all of these components, that the program outcomes are targeted, you have specific skills staff are going to develop, and then you have an instrument for assessing that staff development. So I want to hear from you. Do you always include this in your professional development plans, or what areas of effective planning have you struggled with? So we've got one person, Timothy shared that the plans aren't tied to outcomes, so the program or the youth outcomes. So is it kind of just throwing out a plan saying this is what we're going to work on, but not necessarily knowing why or where they decided that that was what they were going to work on? And I think sometimes that happens depending on what the new thing is to do. So we may have funding to focus on a certain area, even though our outcome and evaluation data doesn't necessarily say that we need to focus on that area. Or, you know, people know that they need to provide professional development, and so they just think, well, this is what we need. Excellent. So yeah, it sounds like it's not explicit that we are, here is the either youth or program outcome that we are wanting to influence. Here is our intervention, our professional development plan that's designed to improve that area, and then here's how we're going to assess it. So it's really that cyclical professional development plan that you start with a needs assessment. What are you wanting to do? You identify your intervention or your plan for how you're going to impact that, and then you show whether you did or not with your evaluation. And if you didn't, it's okay, because you learned from that this wasn't an effective professional development intervention. And why was that? Was it because of the structure? Was it because of the materials that I had? So using this effective planning scheme is really important, because it does help you pinpoint what's effective, what's not effective, and then you're not just doing PD to do PD. You're doing PD that's really influential, that's building the skills of the staff, and helping your staff feel really like professionals. I mean, if you are getting professional development that seems totally unrelated to what you're doing, you roll your eyes, or at least I do, because I'm like, why am I spending valuable time doing something that isn't going to benefit me? So if you have a plan where you're saying, hey, this is our program evaluation data, here's what it says, here's what we're going to do, and then here's how we're going to assess it. Even telling staff that, I think, and I don't have any empirical evidence to support this, but I think it would really help them think, you know what, they really care about my development and how it's going to improve the program. We're not just doing PD to do PD. So that's my perspective on it. And I saw some other comments come through, that yes, it very much plans aren't tied to outcomes. And Carrie gave a plug for Click to Science, because it does have targeted resources that focus on a specific skill that you can tie to the youth program outcomes. So it's easy to use Click to Science to fit into that second bullet point of the specific skills staff will develop, and then you know which resources you want to use. And once again, that planning PD resource does help you do that in a structured way. All right, so we did talk about instruments to assess whether our PD intervention was successful. So just wanted to talk about that for a little bit, because some people have things that they're using, some people don't. So wanted to share what Click to Science has available, and also some other things that are out there. So Click to Science has partnered with the Nebraska Academy of Methodology, Analytics, and Psychometrics, a very fancy and mouthful name for a evaluation organization here at the university. And they're developing retrospective post-pre self-confidence assessments for each of the reorganized Click to Science skills. These are currently available under Research and Evaluation tab under the About drop-down at the top right of the web page. And I also put a link in the web links. It's called Click to Science Tools. And so if you click that, it'll take you to that Research and Evaluation page. And then you can look through the different research projects that we've done, and then at the very bottom there is a yellow button for the self-confidence surveys, but you only want to click that if you are going to take the self-confidence surveys. So if you're interested in using these to assess your staff after you've given them some Click to Science professional development, please contact us at the email address on the next slide, and then we can assign you a trainer coach code to share with your staff, and we can pull your data following professional development experiences using Click to Science staff development guides. So here's a walkthrough of how this works. After facilitating a professional development session using Click to Science staff development guides, you would encourage staff to complete the self-confidence assessment for the skill you focused on. You may need to review the skill focus with staff before they begin the survey. You would guide them to the website where they will have to agree to participate in a research and complete the assessment. You cannot require staff to do this. This violates human subjects research ethics, so you can only encourage them to do it. If they don't want to, they do not have to. The instrument is a retrospective post pre-design composed of Likert-type items about their confidence-using behaviors related to the skill they focused on after their professional development session, and then ask them to think of their abilities before the session and to complete the same items retrospectively. There are 3 open-ended questions that staff answer, and then they complete demographic information. So all told, the surveys usually take about 10 minutes to complete. At the end of the survey, they enter the trainer coach code that we've provided to you and that you've shared with them. And then we ask our research partners to create a report back to you that shows how staff's confidence levels were impacted by the training. You would need to prompt us to share this. And we are currently testing these instruments for validity, how well the instrument measures what we think it will measure, which is staff self-confidence and specific STEM facilitation skills, and also reliability, the degree to which the instrument produces stable and consistent results. So each skill currently has its own survey. If you focus on 2 or 3 skills during one workshop, then staff would select all of those skills, but they need to go through each survey to assess their confidence after the workshop and before the workshop on that specific skill. And ideally, this would be administered after a cycle of ongoing professional development. However, we know that it is not always possible to have a really nice model where you have a training, a meeting, and a coaching, and they practice in between, and they take a self-directed online lesson. So we just ask that you encourage staff to complete the instrument after a PD session using Click to Science materials. We've seen some promising results from preliminary data collected by Boys and Girls Clubs of America that there were gains in self-confidence, and that gives us a little hope that the items created will be valid and that the tool will measure what we want it to measure. And at this time, this is the only instrument available for evaluating Click to Science. Also wanted to point out that in the web links pod, I've linked to Dimensions of Success. So we talked about that with the crosswalk and also with the national data that we looked at. So if you're interested in learning more about that tool, there's a link to it in the web links pod. I also linked to measurement tools for evaluating OST programs. I believe it was the Harvard Family Research Project. I don't think they're called that anymore, but they compiled this huge database of all the different types of tools, what they measure for out-of-school time programs. So if you're looking to change your measurement, add some measurements, or just want to share that with somebody who maybe is looking for something, that link is in there as well. And then there's a link to the crosswalk of Dimensions of Success and Click to Science skills, just in case you were interested in using that if you are using Dimensions of Success. And Carrie did link to the Better Kid Care site as well. So, as our final chat topic of our time together, what are some other ways that you could evaluate the effectiveness of your professional development efforts outside of a formal program evaluation? So we've talked about the different evaluation tools that you use. What are some other ways that you evaluate the effectiveness of your professional development efforts? So just share your thoughts in the chat pod. So we had some good ideas coming through in the chat pod. So teacher retention is a great one. Are your staff sticking around? Are they excited about their work? Are they feeling better about it? Do they seem as stressed and apprehensive about beginning the after-school day as they used to? I like changes in staff behavior, writing lesson plans differently, asking different questions. Some other things I wrote down, so the changes in behavior, are you observing differences in your program from before the PD intervention to after? And probably not with a one-shot training, because we know that that's not very effective in changing behavior, but if you're doing an ongoing cycle of professional development that's focused on one specific skill, and maybe that's group management during STEM, because it's really hard to keep everybody focused and on task, and you see that that really improves and the quality of the learning experience is improving, then I think you can make the assumption to yourself that that PD intervention is working, even if you're not doing a formal evaluation plan. Staff feedback is also another great way to evaluate the effectiveness of professional development. Did they enjoy it? Did they find it useful? Did it teach them something new? Did they think it was a waste of time? Were they bored? Did they not find any value to it? Just asking staff if it was effective is another way, combined with other efforts to evaluate the effectiveness. And some people do create just simple evaluation tools to ask about what they've learned. So if you had this objective for the training, and you also touched on a couple other points, and you make just a really short evaluation that says, did you learn this? Did you learn this? Did you learn this? It's not a real psychometrically sound tool, but it gives you a snapshot into, did they actually learn what you intended them to learn from that professional development session, and is it something that they would participate again? Excellent. So I was paused to read Timothy's questions. So supervisors need an answer to the question, if they do PD plans with staff, they need to know how they will see or evaluate effectiveness of the professional development. They just send staff to make sure they will get training hours that are required. And that is definitely a case, is that people are looking for clock hours. If they have options of PD, they'll select the PD that seems the most interesting to them. If they don't, they'll just attend it because they have to attend it to get these clock hours to stay licensed. My, response to that would be, you could use any of these formal and informal methods to really evaluate the effectiveness of that professional development. So we've talked about kind of informal observations, staff retention, staff feedback, if you create a simple evaluation tool just to ask them about the PD plan, did you like going to this workshop? Did you like going to this workshop? Did you learn these things that you intended them to learn? And I think part of what you're talking about, it also comes from being purposeful about the professional development. Having it linked to the youth and the program outcomes makes it much more easy to evaluate the effectiveness. So if you say, we're going to work on this and we're going to evaluate it this way, I definitely think that helps with eliminate the quandary of just going to PD to go to PD. And I would say there's a lot of organizations that need to make a shift to that, because we go to professional development because people say we need professional development, but it may not be what I need, it may be what this person needs. And so yeah, trying to come up with something that's going to fit the whole program is challenging. But if you're using evaluation data, if you're using your own observations, if you're using your staff's feedback about what they want and what they need, then you can have a pretty targeted PD plan that reaches people and helps improve their skills. So that was a long answer to that comment. And Carrie's sharing, more about Click to Science, where we're realigning our resources to those specific observable outcomes that will help with that. Staff supporting youth to engage with productive failure during engineering tasks. And yes, it is an adult learning factor. Adults want to know that this content has a purpose. Otherwise, it's a waste of time in their mind. Precisely, yes. Adult learning theory says that I need to be able to take this information and apply it. Maybe not right away, but very soon after I learn this information. Otherwise, it has not been a useful use of my time. Okay, so before I start rambling on about adult learning theory and taking up the rest of our time, I just wanted to thank those of you who were able to join us today. We have a little time left for questions, so please type them into the chat box now if you have any lingering. A recording of the webinar will be available through Network for Youth Success. We appreciate you taking the time to join us throughout this webinar series to learn more about STEM, professional development, and out of school time. And please take time to click on the web links and download the files in the Files to Download pod. I have really enjoyed being part of this webinar series and engaging with the after-school professionals in New York. And it's been a pleasure getting to virtually meet all of you and chat with you in the chat pods and present to you. So I want to thank you for this opportunity and encourage you to have a fantastic remainder of the summer. There's still some time left. It feels like it's dwindling every day, but I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer and take time to recharge a little bit.